Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Aging and Spirituality podcast. I'm Kathy Taylor.
And I'm Chris Jensen.
And we welcome you here once again for another lovely conversation. This morning, we're going to be talking about my near-death experience that happened exactly 30 years ago. I was 35 when it first happened. And so I'll do a little summary of that, and Chris is going to stop and ask questions in between. And really what I'm talking about in this experience is not to so much tell you what the experience was like, because everybody's really interested in what happens on the other side. And you can find that out. I did detail it in my book. So go to kathyleetaylor.com if you want to get a free chapter and read that. But the conversation today is really more about what happened to me after that particularly what I call very high experience was, and how it transformed my life. So we're hoping that in having this conversation, something that we talk about will help you understand how to live a more fulfilled life. Because really, a near death is kind of a shortcut into, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to be living life unless you make some of these changes. You learn how to really live a vital life. So winding back 30 years, which is really scary. I hate to say numbers, this like crazy 30 years ago. I was recently out of a divorce with a young son, and my body was experiencing a tremendous amount of stress. So don't get me wrong, this wasn't just like a lightning bolt coming down from the sky. I was very stressed and trying to run my own business. I was an entrepreneur at the time. I brought my kid with me every day to the office, and he'd be in his playpen, and I'd be working, and it was very stressful. And so what ended up happening is my heart literally stopped when I was at home, and I had been sitting down and fell forward and didn't really understand what had happened. I just kind of blacked out. But some part of me, having been around nurses and emergency situations in my lifetime, knew there was something wrong. That was not normal. And so I immediately reached out to a friend and said, I'm blacking out, and then literally dropped the phone and blacked out again. By the time I reached the hospital, my heart had stopped like 5-6 times. When I got there, how you go up to the counter and they're asking you for all your paperwork. And I literally said, I'm about to pass out again. And my friend was behind me and caught me. And the next thing I knew, at that point, they were wheeling me off on a gurney. But at that point, somewhere in there, that last blackout moment was when I had the actual crossover experience into what I call a near-death experience, because I don't know how you would call it anything else.
Let me just ask you one quick question here.
Sure.
So you said you're under a lot of stress. Do you think
Yes.
all of the stress and the pressure had a lot to do with your heart stopping?
I do, because the cause was really what the doctors called sinus node syndrome, which is a nervous condition. It means that when the brain triggers and sends a signal to the heart to beat, the heart just goes, I don't think so. Both sinus nodes on both sides of my heart said, nah, I'll pass.
Yeah.
So
this is too much for me.
Too much for me, exactly. So yes, but clearly these things happen to you for a reason. There's no doubt in my mind this happened for a reason. And the inevitability of I probably got tapped on the head a few times. God was trying to tell me in kinder ways, but my stubbornness, my personality, the way it was back then, which was pretty arrogant and kind of aggressive, I got whacked hard. I got hit hard by life. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do.
And so a lesson was coming.
No, I knew. Yes. And I do feel like that was it. I had created the environment for it to happen. There was definitely, nowhere to go from the cage that I was in with all the stress and all the things going on in my life. So yes. So then, so the crossover experience was very intense, and seeing the other side, being on the other side and remembering every part of it is a incredibly disoriented disorienting experience, because your soul understands what's happening. Your brain is going, what? What the heck, you know? And so when you come back, so first of all, when I came back, I had been out for a number of minutes, and I still need to look that up in the medical records, how many it was. It was a number of minutes. And I know that because when I opened my eyes, the doctor was coming at me with a very long horse needle and was just about to put it in my chest. And I went, wait, I'm back. So I was gone for a while, you know?
Yeah.
And ended up, you know, getting wheeled into ICU, and doctors trying to figure out what they should do, and gave me my options and all of that kind of thing. But when I got out of the hospital, I had to kind of figure out how to make both of those worlds meet. It's a very unusual thing to say, but there were no words to express what was on the other side for me. I have a better handle on it now. I can talk about it in a way that's easier for me. But back then it was just like, you know, I would vacillate. My ego would like want to jump on it and go, oh, you need to know this. Like, you know, I've climbed the hill and you can see what I saw on the other side. And trust me when I say the ego definitely wants to get involved in this process, because I got to be really clear about when it would try to step in and make me feel special because this had happened to me, or do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to be really careful of those places, because what I really tried to do as a student of yoga at the time, as you know, somebody really trying to take the experience and make myself a better person, you know, what were the qualities and characteristics of myself that I was working on that needed to be changed, that needed to be transformed. Those were the questions that I was asking myself while I was dealing with this whole idea of what did I just experience? What did I just see? You know, first of all, the no time space continuum idea is very disoriented. When you get on the other side and you realize there is no time space there, then it's very hard to come back to time space and explain what that means to somebody who's never seen the other side. So I just stopped trying, literally. It didn't make any sense to try and do that.
Do you think that, you know, often when we meditate and we go deep, you know, the ego is really softened and we're experiencing, you know, the consciousness within us.
Yes.
Is there, some people I've heard describe near death as similar to that? Have you had a experience?
That's a great question. I don't know that I've ever articulated that one. So I've had deep experiences in meditation that were incredibly opening, centering, peaceful, you know, I guess the word is deep, but how the NDE was different was that I felt it took me farther, took me into a place where, not necessarily farther, but I literally felt like I stood in the space of divine love. And call that God, call it whatever you want. All I can tell you is how I felt at the moment, and that feeling still follows me. If I ever want to know what that feels like again, I just have to tune in. And I really did get a message at the time. And this is actually, that was a good question, because this is an interesting segue to what I ended up doing like 20 something years later. From some of the stuff that happened, the messaging, what I got from that experience was standing in that divine unconditional love and what that feels like. And the message, when I was told to go back, I wasn't given a choice. I you know, I hear like people like Anita Marjani saying, "Yo, you have a choice. You don't have to go back if you don't want to." No, this was like, no, you got things to do, get back. And so, and I didn't question it, you know, I'm standing in the presence of divine love. I was like, okay, well, but what am I supposed to know? And the message basically was, the message was exactly, this is the kind of love I want people to know.
Oh, yes.
I know, right? And that just whacks you right in the heart. It's like,
whacks you right in the heart. Yeah.
The expansion of that is crazy. Well,
And I think you
and
were getting the message that you needed to be a vehicle for that love.
I needed to be a vehicle for that. And guess what? There's no freaking instruction book for that. I didn't have a clue what to do. I had to, first of all, I had to come back and figure out, you know, I had a 4-year-old son. I had to come back and figure out all the medical stuff. What am I going to do with this? How, you know, how am I going to live? And then all those things. But the really challenging part was, you know, at first I was afraid all the time. Like death was walking right beside me. And it was just like, well, am I staying here? Am I doing this? What's happening? You know? I had a kind doctor say to me, your heart's fine, get out there and live your life. And I was like, okay, I'm good. Okay, I can do this, you know? And then I had to put all the other pieces of it together. What does this mean? And so many times on my knees, just asking, what do you want me to do with this message of divine love? How do I show people this? And so for a long time, I would drop in and out of it and just carry it around with me and go, okay, just feel me. Like, you know, they're going to stop and go, oh yeah, that's amazing. You know,
Yeah.
like unless I'm having a conversation with somebody like you, that's probably not going to happen. However, I would notice that I'd come into a room, people would respond differently to me than they would other people. So there was something to that transmission that was very honest.
Yeah, there was a change.
There was a change for me.
Yeah, a change in you. My mother-in-law, who's going on 96,
Right.
She was 93. She had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
And she talked to my husband and I about it. She didn't talk to other people because she knew they would think she was crazy because of her age.
Sure.
And she said something very similar. She said she really wanted to stay there. It was quite beautiful, but she got the message that there was more that she needed to do, some things she needed to do differently. And she felt the prayers of people. So she came back and she's a different person.
Yes. There's no doubt it transforms you like 360. And I still feel and know that feeling of walking through what I call the veil and being on the other side. And the reason people say, you know, you don't want to come back is because you literally are completely free. It's just a feeling of utter freedom. You have no cares, no joys. I remember just feeling like I was a kid skipping through the fields, you know, just like, wee, I'm going home, you know, this is great.
That's a great
you
feeling.
know?
Yeah.
So why would you turn around and go back? But on the other hand, that's also a, what's the word? A constraint of the mind, because coming back after having that experience can be one of the most elating, intense, beautiful ways to live, where God, just talking about it gets me emotional. Like if you can handle the amount of energy, if you can find the words to, you know, bring yourself to a place where you can walk into a space and just be in that presence, and whatever you're called to do in that situation with that person, you do the very best that you can. And that's basically what I've grown into. However, and I wrote a book about this because I remember looking back over my life of the years that I had been practicing yoga, and I recognized very incremental steps that I would do over and over and over again. And of course, they have to do with my personality and the path that I was on and learning surrender. And by the way, is there any bigger surrender than walking into
I was going to
a
say
death
that's the
experience?
total surrender, because you know there's a yoga practice we do where you lie on the ground, you know, very relaxed and as if dead. That's the practice.
Dead.
You're not going to physically, but that's the idea, to soften the ego so much. Like
it is. It soften the ego. God, I love that term. Thank you for saying that, because that's really is what it's done. It made me grapple with the ego over and over and over again over the last number of years, and try to figure out where it fits, you know, in my survival mode, or in my, maybe it doesn't fit at all, you know, like the older I get, the less I need to tap into that. And at the same time, there are responsibilities when you experience that, again, that level of energy. It really is an energetic transmission. It's it's hard on the body. It takes, you have to pay attention to your body. You have to take care of your body, or you won't be able to maintain that feeling of divine love that we just experienced a few minutes ago by going back to that moment and that calling. That can be intense. So one of the things that transformed for me after 35 was an ongoing process of self-care and what that meant for me. And it means so much more, and it's different now, even 30 years later, but all along the way, I was asking those questions. What is it that I need to do for myself that is the most important thing to keep me, in this experience, in this feeling, in my calling? What is my service? Which, I have to ask over and over and over again. Now it's much more making my body my best friend, because I'm at an age where it needs more help. and I ask a lot of it.
Yeah, that's so important. We forget sometimes that loving others, and there's also loving the self, and the self-care that's so important.
I'm glad you just said that, because loving others is something that oftentimes empathic women will do just naturally, because they grew up always putting other people first. I can say unequivocally that if you do not put yourself first and then help others, you're not only going to burn yourself out, you're not doing the right service for everyone else.
That kind of reminds me of like when you're on a plane and they're going over the rules and they say, put your mask on first so that you can help others,
That's absolutely right. Yeah. Because the best thing I can do for someone is show up in that
fully. Yeah.
Right? Is show up with that. I mean, the best thing I love about you is every time I'm around you, I feel inspired. I feel uplifted, because, you are in that space. So it's like the best thing I can do is bring that to people. So if I'm ignoring what my physical body needs, what my mental, emotional needs are, then it can't show up like that, and I'm not bringing my best self. So really, self-care is so important.
Well, I knew you before, during, and after this experience. And I mean, the shift was tangible.
Yes.
I mean, it was.
Oh, describe it, please. What did you see?
Well, instantly I saw the softening. I could feel the confidence, I mean, like the fear of death, like you said, it kind of goes away. And that was when you're not afraid of death, then you live life fully. And I could feel the love. I mean, it was so tangible. And I felt your openness to, that growth within. It was just, it was, and it continues. I mean, but I mean, I'm talking about what I felt immediately, but, I continue to see that growth.
Well, and isn't that a key, that the capacity to be open and receptive is really that creative unfolding of what the soul wants for you?
Exactly.
That is the ultimate self-care, being in that space of being receptive to every second of what spirit wants and requires, from you.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the best way that you can show up in the world. And by the way, as a, reward, I guess is the idea, or maybe we don't want rewards, whatever it is, we end up, when we stay in that space, we are naturally more joyful, more happy, more content, more peaceful. All of those, levels of emotion that, people talk about being on a higher scale. Well, I know I prefer to feel joy over sadness, or, that kind of thing, but we don't have to work at those. They come naturally when you stay in that. Wouldn't you say that's true? So if you're in, I mean, you're a teacher, so you have to stay there.
Yeah. When you're free of anxiety and fear, and in yoga, what we say is, it's not about us attaining something. It's about us letting go of the things that keep us from centering in who we really are. So as we let go of the anxiety and the fear and the distractions, then we are in that joyful place. And, no matter what's happening around us, it doesn't matter.
Yes. It's so true. And and like the biggest blessing of this is having the reference point of knowing what divine love feels like. I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. I can't talk about that without getting really emotional, because and that was the part that I think, wanted to climb the mountain, go, wait, come over here on this hill. I just saw the goods. And I want you to see it too, like there was that moments when I just wanted to scream from the rooftops, oh my gosh, you guys, you gotta see this. And then it kind of settled into bring it with you, enjoy it. Share it when you can.
Share it, yeah.
Share it when you can. And even if they're not asking you for it, you can be in that place and they can respond however they respond,
Yeah, and it's not always about you telling people about it. It's about you just emanating it.
Yeah,
people just being around you feel it.
Yes.
It's in yoga, we call it darshan. Like when we're around someone who's had a very high experience, that helps us to have the experience, even if no words are spoken.
And it's an interesting thing because it kind of makes me think about, like an obstacle course, because when you have that realization, you're like, okay, is this thing going to knock me off? Like you know what I mean? You're like always wanting to avoid the things that are going to knock you out of that place. And then sometimes you just have to go, I'm tired. I need to rest, or whatever it is, to really rejuvenate yourself. And of course, that's what meditation is for us. I can't imagine, you and I both know we can't imagine not having meditation in our lives, but it saves me, it really saves.
Yeah. And I think that's the, what we can share with the folks who are listening is that, you don't have to have the near-death experience like she
did. Good you said
you
that.
can have an experience of that divine love in the inner self, and you have to be patient with yourself. You want to just keep shedding the things that distract you, and little by little, you get there. You can get glimpses of it, or you can have a big explosive experience. Most people get glimpses, and it builds.
And there's the teacher coming out, and I'm so glad you said that, because I make that point in my book. You do not want to aspire to have a near-death experience. What you want to do is take from it the idea that somebody else has experienced this depth of divine love. It's at a reference point for them. Go inside yourself, and this is what I would do if I was listening. Find the most spiritual experience you have and focus on that, and let that grow. Go into your meditation with that feeling and sinking into that, place of balance and harmony and all of those things. And the more you ask from that space, the more it will grow and be created for you. So yeah, use yourself as that reference point. Use your highest, and if you don't feel like you've had a high experience, meditate and get down on your knees and ask for one.
If you don't ask, you're not going to
receive.
Just ask for it, and then be open to receiving.
Right. Literally just, please show me what it feels like to stand in divine love. Take one step toward God, he'll take 10 towards you.
Absolutely.
Every time.
So
yes, please absolutely do that. So, okay. So where are we in terms of, have we covered all the things I wanted to talk about in terms of lessons learned, what happened to me?
I think so. I think we're hitting on a high note here, I think, to leave folks with in terms of asking to be in that divine love.
Yes. And I think I would probably just wrap it up by saying that, a lot of people are struggling these days with what their purpose is in life. And if you try to use your thoughts and logic your way in, it's like backing your butt in the door. It doesn't work that way. Going, what, backwards. It doesn't work that way. So to find your purpose, to know what your service is, you have to go inside. It is an inner guided process.
Yes.
It is a ongoing walking meditation with God, holding hands, you know, being the best that you can be at any given moment, you know, giving yourself forgiveness when you don't feel like you can be your best, you know, and certainly celebrating yourself when you have a great day or feel like you're in a situation and you did the very best you could, and continually coming back to that question of every morning, I say, use me. How can I be of service? How can I help today? And so
surrendering to that, surrendering
what,
surrendering to it, like
yes, and
asking,
surrendering to it,
yeah.
to whatever it is, because sometimes it'd be like, what?
It's not what I had in mind.
That's not what I had in mind. Are you kidding me? But it is a ongoing daily walk and surrender. And you never, when you're doing that, you're never thinking, oh God, what's my purpose? Well, my purpose is to be devoted to you. My purpose is to be devoted to your highest will and what is best for any given person or any given situation. And so that brings an enormous amount of peace into your life when you can do that in a way that doesn't just feel like dogma, just, you know, like it's a rote question. You know, this is a very deep and intimate relationship with your creator, and that's what you want to encourage. So what would be our best tip for, well, I think we've already said it, you know, you don't have to have an NDE to have that experience with your inner self. Learn to meditate, learn to calm the mind.
And just be open. No one's necessarily a great meditator the first few times they sit down to do it, or the first time.
No doubt.
Be patient with yourself and surrender, and it will happen.
Right. Yes, let me just say, when I first came to the yoga center, it took me, I think, 2 years before I could get the practice down of being able to meditate a half an hour twice a day. I would look around at the yogis that were doing that, like, how did they spend all that time doing that? That's
Everybody
crazy.
does that at first.
Crazy yogi. But for people who don't know, Chris Jensen was my Upa guru. She was my first teacher, and we had an instant connection.
Yeah.
So whenever I had questions about meditation or whatever it was, I would go to her. So God bless your soul. I love you, my sister.
They love you
Sister
too.
and my teacher.
We help each other grow. And
Yeah,
we're helping folks here. So
we definitely have, that's for sure. All right, sweet one.
Right.
I guess we're done on this one.
We're done. So
Yeah, if you have
any
questions, you know how to get a hold of Chris. She's at theyogacenter.org, and I'm at kathyleetaylor.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions. And if people want to have read the story of my NDE, I give away a chapter of the book free. You can just go there and request it. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you for showing up.
Thank
We
you.
hope you're enjoying it, and we hope we'll see you again.
See you soon.
Bye.